reaction to the Pope's apology this morning?
Yeah. My reaction, I guess, is I'm grateful as a First Nations person whose family went to, my aunts and uncles went to the residential schools. I'm thankful, but I also know that reconciliation didn't start today, and it's not going to end today. It's a journey that we all must take together. But this is an important step along that journey. It's something that survivors have been asking for such a long time, and I'm grateful and just it's been reflecting on it all morning, what it means, and I haven't been able to talk to my family and my relatives yet, but I'm sure they're all grateful, but know that there's a lot of work to be done in this country for reconciliation.
What should come next?
Well, I think that education is the biggest part of this. This is why National Day of Truth and Reconciliation was important, because in my time, in my work, that before I was a member of Parliament, I would do these presentations all across Nova Scotia, and the biggest thing that they would tell me is, why was I never aware of this? Why wasn't anyone talking about this? How come this is just coming to light now? And it's an important journey for us to be able to not only understand what happened during the residential schools, but to feel something as a country, as a people, but also know that it's in our hands to make things better for the next generation of First Nations children. And that's what our government's committed to doing.
Your Indigenous People Civic Center, your partner, I recall, I think has gone through a residential school. This is obviously incredibly challenging. But what would you like to see from the Pope? Would you like to see him come to Canada? Would you like to see him come to Western Canada? Make an apology, make a fuller apology? What would you like to see?
Well, I think my role in all of this is to support survivors of residential school. I don't think it's up to me to determine what others need or don't need for their healing, and I'm going to leave those kinds of answers to survivors of residential schools. Thank you.
Would you like to see the Pope come to Canada? Would you like to see the Pope come to Western Canada, Eastern Canada? What would you like to see? I'm just trying.
I think any part of Canada, it would be deeply meaningful for the Pope to come here to, not only hear from the Indigenous people in the Rome, but actually to witness where some of these residential schools stood and see what's there now, and knowing that there's 140 residential schools across Canada, that the Catholic Church had their role to play in the cultural genocide that was committed against Indigenous people. I think when I was answering questions in the House, I thought about my aunt who went to a residential school, thought about my uncle and what it means to them, for people who went to these schools but never gave up their faith. People who, Mi'kmaq communities like mine of 5,000 people who still get baptized, who still get confirmed, who still do all of these things that are attached to the Catholic Church and have been praying for decades for an apology from the Pope, and to see that the Pope actually do it. When I woke up this morning and actually heard the news, reading his words, I was emotional, but also thankful that all of the prayers of many Indigenous peoples across this country and the faith they put in that someday they would get an apology from the Holy Father, the leader of the Church, is an important one. But it's also an important one for him to come to Canada and really apologize on Canadian soil.
I ask you about the apology. Some folks, I think within Indigenous communities and elsewhere, are not fully happy. He's apologized for some things, but not for other things. Would you like to see his apology expanded to include, if I've got this right, the behavior of clergy and other things?
I think it's important for him to understand what happened during the residential schools, and I know that he's got a lot on his plate, but it's important that he listened to the Indigenous leaders this week. I know that survivors of the residential schools and their families are at different levels of healing, and they will always be at different levels of healing. But this is not the first step or the last step towards reconciliation, but it's an important step towards the combined healing of Indigenous people and non-Indigenous people in this country for what we've done.
The last thing I'd ask you is, as a child, I remember '84, and I remember the Pope not being able to make it to Fort Simpson because of the ground fog. It took 3 years to get him to, just scheduling-wise, to get to Fort Simpson again. With people's schedules the way they are, do you see this if you were to come, it wouldn't be this year, would it? It would be a year and just put things together? Or do you think-
I don't know. I couldn't tell you. With all of the complexities we have about travel and COVID and the different waves that we're going through, I think this year would be ambitious, but it'd be great to see him here within the next 3 years to be able to make good on what he's told the delegation that went to Rome. And I think that the sooner the better, but we also all realize that logistics and travel isn't the same as it used to be over the years.